Welcome to the Celebrating Women podcast. Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher dig into conversation about women, their issues, their thoughts, their lives, and celebrate their gifts, their talents, their courage. It's the Celebrating Women podcast, presented by Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler, Texas. Hey, it's Mandee, and you know I love to relax, right? I've shared the secret of where I go and some of my favorite treatments, and now I want to spotlight something else for you. The incredible staff at Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa in Tyler. This month, I want to tell you about Bree. I had the most delightful experience with Bree while she improved my skin with a dermal infusion. She answered all of my questions about the treatment, talking me through each step and making me feel at ease and relaxed. She expertly cleaned my skin and then took her time with the dermal infusion. If you've never had one, it's an amazing combination of exfoliation and hydration, all in one effective treatment. Knowing my skin has taken a beating this summer from the heat, I knew I needed to give it extra special care, and that is exactly what Bree provided. Schedule your dermal infusion now. Visit Hand and Stone Massage and Facial Spa, located in Cumberland Shopping Center, or book online at handandstonetyler.com.
We're back.
We're back.
Here we are. Ashley Fisher, Mandee Montana. It's the Celebrating Women podcast. And today we have a very special guest with us. We have Dawn Livingstone.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you for driving to Tyler to sit with us today.
My pleasure.
So Dawn and I met, about maybe 2 to 3 years ago?
Yeah.
Through
Will be now, yeah.
Through wellness and nutritional supplements. And over the years, we've just gotten to be better friends. We've learned that we have quite a few things in common. Yeah. And she was recently featured in a book called Achieve Wellness. Mm-hmm. And we wanted her to come and talk a little bit about her story that's featured in here. So this is several authors. It's a collaborative book, right?
It is. Yeah, there's 21 of us.
Okay. Tell me a little bit about the book.
Well, the book is meant to help and guide people that are really struggling. They're either in pain or in any kind of suffering in their life, whatever they're going through. Mm-hmm. And each author has a unique story about how they have come through a tragedy. So that we can be a beacon of light for people, so that they understand that even though they're feeling really down right now and they can't see light at the end of the tunnel, that healing and getting yourself back on the right track is actually possible.
I love that.
Mm-hmm. And we share our stories, and we share how our realization, what happened when the penny dropped, etc., that made you change your perception of your situation, what was driving you to make that positive change in your life. So it was good fun to write it and actually put my story down on paper, because I hadn't done that before. I hadn't done it at all, so it was quite emotional at the time, actually realising that I had been through some pain and suffering. But I didn't actually realise at the time that was the case. Life is life for you. You don't really understand that there is a problem until a penny drops and you have this epiphany, all of a sudden. Well, I'll tell you a little bit about.
Yeah.
Okay.
We do want to hear about that. Before you do, though, very quickly, because as I'm listening to you, I'm familiar with you, but most of our listeners probably aren't. You have a beautiful accent. Will you tell us where you're from and how you came to East Texas?
Are you from East Texas?
Well, I think not. I was born in Edinburgh, Scotland.
Okay.
I was raised there until I was 45. And my husband and I moved over here. I married an American who has just as strong a Scottish accent as I do, believe it or not. But yeah, we've been in California and Colorado, and we have now been in East Texas for just a year today.
Really?
Oh, wow. Well, happy anniversary, Texas.
First
anniversary. Make a word up. I like it.
But yes, Scotland. Born and raised in Scotland, and we love it here. We just love it here.
Yeah. Well, I know the story. I had a chance to read the story a few months ago whenever I got the book from you. Yeah. But this didn't happen recently. This happened while you were still in Scotland. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
It did.
Yeah. And one of the things that part of the reason I wanted to have you on, Ashley and I have had a lot of conversations around obviously celebrating women, but oftentimes what we celebrate is women coming through difficult situations. Yeah. We've had other women on that have talked about job transitions, one, the death of a child, but just also like that there are difficult situations day to day that we go through, just as you described, where it kind of becomes normal and it becomes your normal and you don't necessarily know how bad it is. Yeah. Until you, like you said, the penny drops and you have this realization. So part of the reason I wanted to have you share your story and talk about it with us is for the same reason that you published it in this book, is to offer people hope and let them see that, you know, sometimes you do come to that realization. What do you do with it when it happens? So wherever you'd like to start, the beginning, or if you want to start in a different place from where you start the book, that's fine too. But you know, the title here says Surviving Toxic Relationships.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah. And that's really my story. Mostly all the way through my life, I didn't realize that I was in toxic relationships until I think it was 2005. Now, when I was 4, my parents, they split up and divorced. My father, his name is Ted, and my mother remarried my stepfather, Andy, who was a beautiful soul. He's no longer with us, unfortunately. So he has raised me since I was 7. And I couldn't really do anything right with my father, with Ted. It didn't matter what I said or what I said I wanted to do, what my aspirations were. It was always shot down in flames. And I was bullied from about age 10, maybe 10 or 11, right up through college.
Really?
Oh, yeah. And it was just, at the time, it felt like it's just, you know, it is what it is. I didn't realise I had control to change that until much, much later on. And even in my last marriage, I just knew, we'd been married for about 11 years, and I just knew there was something not right with this marriage. I couldn't put my finger on it. That was the strangest of things. I didn't quite know what it was. I used to take my 2 youngest children to a karate class a couple of days during the week. And one day I was thrown very badly and I landed on my right hip. And that caused the disc in my back to crack. So I had this bulging disc, which caused severe sciatica. And I was, literally flattened. I couldn't stand, I couldn't walk, I certainly couldn't sit. The best place for me to be was lying flat. And I remember being in so much pain at that time. I didn't know what on earth to do. I think it was about 4 months, and I was flat out on the couch for this whole 4 months. And I picked up a book at the time. You'll have heard the author Louise Hay.
Oh, I
had recently done a Reiki class and become a Reiki master teacher. And I remember being in full-on victim mode because I was so depressed and I was in so much pain. And I remember emailing my Reiki teacher at that time saying, "You told me Reiki would change my life positively, and look at me now." I felt so hopeless. I said, "Look at me now, I can't work, I can't pick up my kids, I don't have a life." And she fired back this response to me just within a few minutes that really made me think. She says, "Have you ever thought about what not being able to work allows you to do rather than what it's stopping you from doing?"
Interesting.
So that really made me think. But I couldn't quite put my finger on it again. And I think within the 2 or 3 weeks after that, I had to go back to work. I had exhausted all my sick pay. Needs must, unfortunately. And I had to go back to work. And I had to see one of the company counsellors just to make sure that everything was okay, and can they change anything to do with my working environment, just to make sure that I was comfortable. And I made an appointment with the counsellor and went along, and I sat down, and the first thing she said to me, "So, how's things at home?" I really think she regretted asking me that.
Oh dear.
I used this as, a vent. I think I was like a volcano. Everything had been bubbling up inside and just boiling up me like a pressure cooker. And that question just allowed me to erupt. So I was telling her things my husband at the time was saying, the things he wasn't saying, the things he was doing, the things he wasn't doing, how he made me feel. And I was, firing off all these examples at her. And I think she let me vent for a good 20, 30 minutes.
Wow.
I was just getting it all off my chest. I was howling. I was just crying so hard. And at the end of it, she just let me finish. And then she asked me this question, and this was my light bulb. She said, "So how long have you been getting abused?"
Oh my goodness.
And I said to her, "Oh no, you've picked that up completely, the wrong way. He's never lifted a finger to me. He's never once hit me, and I truly believe he would never have done that."
Mm-hmm.
She said, "No," she said, you've not been physically abused, but you have been mentally, emotionally, verbally and psychologically abused." And that to me was that epiphany. That was what I needed. That was my penny dropping. Oh my word, I have been abused. I never even thought about it that way. And then that was when the emotion started flowing. It was the anger. Oh, the anger at him for treating me that badly. But also, after I thought about it, it was more anger towards myself, because the realization set in that I was only abused because I allowed him to do it. Yeah?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my major breakthrough. And I think within 6 weeks of that happened, I would say October, November.
Mm-hmm.
I allowed Christmas to get out the way. And I said to him, "We're done. I can't do this anymore. That's it. It's all done." So that was really my moment. And since then, my life has done a 180.
Really?
Oh, an absolute 180. So we separated then, and we were divorced the following year. And I think it was about a year after that, 2007, I met my current husband. And he is a gem. He is the total opposite of my ex-husband. And it's just wonderful. I have a life full of support, a life full of love. And it was just that change in perception that, because I truly believe that everything is held in the mind. Whatever you believe, it's what you will create. So now I changed my perception. Now I have a different belief, and boy, did I create that in my life. So I'm very, very thankful for that.
So talk a little bit more about that. So you're talking about, you believe that you created where you're at now. Do you think a lack of belief, or maybe just a lack of intentionality before, is how you've kind of fell into the toxic relationship? Like where do you think that started? Or do you think it came from maybe being in a toxic relationship with your father?
I think that's partly where it started.
Okay.
I believe now that you can bring through into this lifetime certain habits, certain beliefs, certain vibrations, because being an energy healer, I understand that everything is energy, and energy is everything, and energy is vibration. It's just something we can't see.
A frequency.
But it's there. It's frequency. It's resonance. Yes. And every single thing has a specific resonance. It has a specific frequency. So your thoughts, your words, your actions. Anger has a specific frequency. So does love. So does joy. So does money. This type of thing. Every single thing has a different resonance. And whatever you believe, so whatever you perceive to be true becomes your belief. Therefore, you have that specific resonance. And all the resonances of everything that we believe, we emanate 24/7 out into the universe. And the universe is very, very nice. It brings you more of what you are. So if you are constantly vibrating anger or anything negative, then that's exactly what you get back. You get more people and situations in your life to make you to meet that resonance. And by the same token, if you are full of love and compassion and joy, then that's exactly what's returned back to you. So things need to be changed on a deeper level, and it all starts with awareness. And that was about my chapter in the book.
Yeah.
Was about being aware of what's going on in your life, because if you don't think, just like myself, if you're not aware of a problem, how can you fix it? How do you fix it? You can't, because you don't think. You have to know something's there. You have to believe that it's there, and it can be changed. Yeah, it's all about energy. Yeah, and I didn't realize that I had given my power away so often to so many people. I let them control my life instead of understanding that I was the only one that can control my life. And so many of us do. I see it all the time. You know, women wishing to do something and their husband interferes. Or, you know, their children interfere and they say something like, oh, that's really horrible. I don't see you doing that at all. I'll give you an example.
Okay.
My father, when I was younger, Ted, I remember I'd been like, 4 and 5, something like that, very, very young. And the in thing at the time was the question, so what do you want to be when you grow up?
Sure.
4 or 5.
All the time. 4 or 5.
Yes. Yeah.
It's common.
If anything, it gives the parents a bit of a giggle. But at that time, being an air hostess was important to me for some reason.
An air hostess?
An air hostess, like an air
fun.
stewardess. I
Yeah,
had
yeah.
no idea why, but I remember feeling quite excited, being on the plane. And my dad, my father, he would always say, oh, no, you can't be that. That's ridiculous. And then he would say something really horrible about air stewardesses. And that really undermined me. But that tended to go on. Every single thing that I mentioned that I wanted to do, he would shoot me down in flames. And I see it so often with people. And it's so hard now for me to not say something. Okay, I need to mind my own business here, because it really is none of my business. If I'm asked for help, happy to help. But I don't like to stick my nose in per se. But it's hard, once you've come through these toxic relationships and have turned your world around positively, it is very hard not to say to these women, do you realise that you need to, set your boundaries and you need to be firm in your boundaries? It's hard. Very hard, and that's partly why the chapter's there.
Yes.
To bring that to light, and hopefully if people are going to read this story, they will understand that they may also be in that type of relationship without even knowing it, because that's where I was up until I was about 45 years old.
Yeah. So when you're talking about these toxic relationships and somebody's listening and going, their ears are peaked and they're intrigued. Well, what if I'm in a toxic relationship? Do you have kind of in your back pocket now, like a list of all right, if these sort of things are going on, you may be in a toxic relationship. Can you give us some examples of what that might look like?
I wouldn't say I had a list. I'm happy to listen to them and I suppose evaluate from the outside looking in, because during my time in my previous marriage, I would ask my sister or my mother and they would give me their input. They're too close to the situation. So it does really benefit you to have someone outside of your relationship, somebody that isn't close to either of you, to see it from a completely different viewpoint. And that was the counsellor for me that did that. So I really would recommend to people, if they want a little bit of analysis about what's going on in their life, see somebody who's completely neutral.
So you had kind of a traumatic physical experience that brought you to face this, right? So if you hadn't had that, do you think you would? If you hadn't had that injury,
I would think probably not.
You might have been trapped in that situation longer.
I think that happened to me for a reason, created by myself, which at the time it was really hard for me to understand that and accept it. But I do believe that you create situations, you create things in your life that also, because I clearly wasn't listening. I clearly wasn't listening or seeing what was going on in my relationship. So I needed to stop, to be stopped in my tracks. And I believe that's exactly what happened.
I believe those things happen too. Like, and it can show up in a lot of different ways, whether it's an accident, maybe it's just a conversation with a friend,
Yes.
you know, or somebody, an outside perspective. But so what do you think for someone like Ashley saying it, that's in maybe a relationship and they're feeling, I don't know, because it sounds like you were feeling pretty down.
Very. Didn't realize it. Wouldn't acknowledge it, but pretty depressed.
So what do you think those feelings might be if somebody was feeling them that you might notice in somebody else's relationship? Or if you were listening and I was saying something like, you know, I mean, I'm unable to have a conversation with my spouse because he refuses to talk about this topic, or he just ignores me, or he stares at the television all the time, and whatever, like whatever the things are. What do you think would be big red flags for you? Is it the way a person's feeling? Is it actions from another person? Like what?
Well, I think if somebody refuses to discuss, that's a big red flag in itself. Mm-hmm. Because I had very similar.
Yeah.
In that last marriage, it didn't matter what I said; it wasn't good enough. Mm-hmm. You've got to look at the relationship as a whole. Are you staying together just for kids? Because that's what I realised I was doing. Mm-hmm. I maybe had 3 little kids, and it was always a case of, you know, you're breaking up a happy home. Well, it's not really happy, you know? Mm-hmm. And I think the kids would get on better if we were separated and happier. Mm-hmm. You know, you've got to, you know, look at your life and see what's important to you. And one thing that I wasn't doing was looking after myself. I was doing everything for everyone else first, mm-hmm. and just neglecting myself, basically. And I didn't realise how badly I was doing that.
I think that's really common for women.
Yes, it is.
Ashley and I, on one of our last conversations, we talked a bit about that, about how, you know, it's important to curate your life.
Yes.
To choose the people that are in your life, to choose the things that you're seeing, that you're hearing, that you're exposing yourself to. Mm-hmm. And if you're not doing those things, you can find yourself in situations like what you were in. Mm-hmm. I've been in them previously too, where you go through life day to day and you're thinking about what your next meal is, or when you have to be at work next, or what the next appointment is in your calendar. Yeah. You just kind of get in this rhythm and this rut where you're not actually intentionally aware mm-hmm. of what you're exposing yourself to, or mm-hmm. who, or the conversations that you're having. I think it's really common.
Yeah. Or just how you're doing. Because I think so many women, it's like, you know, I go back in my head to whenever you have children, you go in 6 weeks after you've had this living being, you know, especially as a first time mom, and they say, "How are you doing?" And your answer is, I guess I'm fine, because you don't have any previous experience, so you're just in your head you're going, I guess this is just how it is. I'm fine. Meanwhile, you have absolutely no idea that you are anxious, you're depressed, you've got all these things going on, but we're not aware because we come from the assumption so often as women, like, this is just how it is. This is just how it is. And there's something in women too that, you know, we're kind of gritty. Like, we're just going to put our head down and go. Like, we're just going to do the thing. And mm-hmm. we so often leave ourselves in the dust when we do that.
Well, having a small child, you know, you're not given a book of instructions.
Right.
You've just got to do the best you can, and really you do what your parents are teaching, what your own mm-hmm. parents are teaching you. And that's how we are conditioned along the line. And women really are conditioned to be the person in the house that looks after the house, that looks after all the laundry, the cleaning, the children, the shopping, and has to work at the same time. Mm-hmm. But that label has been, you know, slapped on the women all the time. Mm-hmm. And let me just go back quickly to what we were talking about. My experience with my marriage, it's one thing, understanding that you're better off without a spouse, without a husband or a spouse. That's totally fine, but you can't divorce yourself from your family. Now, I have to say that, unfortunately, my brother and I had to part ways a couple of years ago because he couldn't accept me for who I was. Mm. He couldn't accept that I saw the world through different eyes.
Mm-hmm.
He couldn't accept that I was maybe making some Facebook posts that he didn't like or he didn't understand. And I was getting a lot of, posting pictures of people with tinfoil hats on my Facebook page and, getting some rude comments on family group discussions and thing. And I just decided one day that this was not for me. And it took me back to my marriage because, again, he was only being like that with me because I allowed him to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I put my foot down one day and we just do not communicate at all. And it's very, very sad. But unfortunately, sometimes people just can't see things like that. They refuse to accept people for who they are. They don't allow people to have a different opinion.
Mm-hmm.
They don't see that really naturally humans are very diverse in nature. They all see things differently. They all have different opinions because, let's face it, if we all had the same opinion about the same thing, the world would be so boring.
It really would.
It would be
It
so
really
boring
would.
and it would be all exactly the same.
Mm-hmm.
So we're allowed our differences and opinions, but you
Mm-hmm.
don't shoot people down, for the way they think about things or the way they see things. It's just about accepting people for the way you are, and then things will fall into place and you'll have much more happiness and much more joy and things will be a lot more flowy. You'll be in the flow of the universe instead of resisting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's hard. It is hard. So I just wanted to let you know that it's not just about, the spouse. It's about family members as well, because I think I found that one to be more difficult.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
With my
Totally.
brother, yeah. I really wish it hadn't been like that. And it's very unfortunate. But I think it has to be like that, even if it's just going to be for a while,
Right.
I think.
I mean, you have to have your boundaries to protect the care of yourself.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think sometimes people have this concept, and I think our world is seeing it a lot lately. There's a difference between accepting someone for who they are and agreeing with them. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yeah.
You don't have to agree to accept that somebody sees things differently. You can be kind and move on.
Yes,
You know?
that's exactly it.
You know, you just say, okay, that's great, Dawn.
Don't comment on everything.
Yeah.
If you don't like it, keep scrolling. Just
Correct.
keep scrolling.
Correct. Or unfollow somebody. It doesn't mean
Yeah.
that you have to separate your relationship, but maybe don't discuss that topic for a while.
Yeah.
Just accept that you feel differently about it and move on. We talked about this recently too. I've got a lot of friends and family on Facebook that see the world differently than I do. I don't discuss it with them because I don't like to have discord.
Yeah.
It doesn't help me. It doesn't help them. If they want to share with me, I can listen. I can listen and I can be kind and I can ask questions about that. It doesn't mean I have to change my belief or change my opinion.
That's very true.
And so, I just try to be kind and then I move on. Like if it starts to be something that doesn't sit well with me, I can just move on and change the subject.
Yeah.
I have that power. I don't have to be a victim to the conversation and feel that I'm being bullied or feel that I have to be changed. And if they are telling me that I have to change, then I can put that boundary there and say, actually, that's no.
Well, another example, I did block my brother on Facebook and told him I'm not going to give him the opportunity to post these types of things on my Facebook. And he said to me, well, that's fine. I don't want you to unblock me. He said, because I don't really like some of the things you've been posting. Now, my Facebook page. It's only positivity. It's nice
cats.
pictures. It's just the occasional cat, and more recently, a lot more wildlife since we've been in East Texas. But I couldn't quite understand, what he was referring to, what type of posts, and I was curious. I was going to ask him, well, what type of posts are you not agreeing with? And I thought, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole. I'm just going to leave it the way it is. There's no point in doing this. We're just dragging it on. Let's just stop. So and unfortunately sometimes that has to be done.
But like you said, it doesn't have to be permanent.
No and I hope we'll be able to start communicating again. I know this is, I'm hoping it's not going to be a permanent thing. But I think it had to be at that time, and I think it had to be said. I had to say what was on my chest, because I think for most of my life I have been too worried about what other people think about me. You know, whether if I open my mouth and say what I think, am I going to upset somebody? And now I am of the opinion and the understanding that it's always going to happen in your life. You can't keep everybody happy. So why, as long as you're not being unkind or rude to somebody, why can you not speak your opinion? And I have been silent and worried about all of that for my entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
a lot of people are.
I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of women, especially in this area, are. I think it's been, you were talking about when you have a child that you basically emulate your parents, and you're kind of conditioned over generations. I feel like, especially in the South, Ashley and I've talked a little bit about this off mic, that women are conditioned in the South to be quiet, to be pretty, to be in the background, to be taking care of things.
Do as I say, not as I do. That was a big one when I was growing up.
And that doesn't sit very well with me at all. I mean, I've had a microphone in front of my mouth for 20 years, so but it's for the most of the time I was pretty well in line with just doing my job or whatever. This is really the first time I've had an opportunity with a microphone in front of me to speak my mind or give my opinion about a lot of things that aren't, do I like this song or this artist, and I hope that through the opportunity that I'm sharing good things, kind of like you're saying with your Facebook page, I guess I'm coming back to this thought of like, I do think we need to speak up for ourselves and advocate for ourselves, not to be, like you're saying, not to be rude or unkind, but if we need something, to be able to use our voice,
to be able to ask for help
and ask for help, or even things that we want, to be able to request them
and say, okay, that's enough. I can't do this right now. Actually tell somebody that you're over my red line here. This is not acceptable to me. And to be able to turn around and say no, but with confidence, instead of backing away with fear, because that's really what I did most of my life. Yeah.
What do you think? Because part of the beauty and I think necessity in relationships and having friends of all different types of belief systems and thoughts and all that, part of the beauty and necessity of that is that diversity of thought, having friends and family around that can challenge us. Like, oh, okay, well, have you ever thought about this?
Exactly.
Where is the line, though, between a relationship being challenging in a healthy way and it getting to the place where you need to block and unsubscribe?
I think it all depends on the stubbornness of the two people. My ex-husband was exceptionally stubborn. Nobody was allowed to challenge his opinion. Well, at least not me. I wasn't allowed to challenge his opinion. I wasn't allowed to say or suggest anything differently. But with Duncan, my husband, he's just wonderful. He'll listen to what I've got to say, and then you can see him looking up and he's thinking, he's digesting what I'm saying, and then he'll think a minute, and then he'll give me his response, and I'll be like, never thought about it like that. And sometimes he'll say the same about what I've mentioned to him, and he'll say, I never saw it like that. I always saw it in this way. So I think if you've got the openness in a relationship to be able to discuss things that's not going to make you angry, it's not going to trigger you in any way, you've got a great relationship there. Yeah.
Whether it's a spouse or a family member or a friend.
Even a work colleague, or people that you hang around with at the weekend. Or I think if you're allowed to express your opinions and they accept it, and they may very deeply reject that thought or that opinion that you have about whatever it is that you're discussing, I think you've got a good bunch of friends there. So they don't fall out based on a political opinion or, which protein powder's the best, all these different things.
Right, because it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
in the
it
grand
doesn't
scheme
matter.
of things, does
We're
it
all
matter?
Different. No. Just allow him to like his peanut butter and jelly, and somebody else wants a ham and tomato. That's fine.
Right. Well, tell us, Dawn, where we can find your book and where we can find you online.
You can find me dawnlivingstone.com. You'll see everything that I do there. There's a link to my book if anybody wants to purchase it. The other one I have is, and the name's escaping me, Linktree. Linktree.com/Voyage of Transcendence, because that's my business.
Voyage of Transcendence.
Yes, Voyage of Transcendence.
So just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the word transcendence is about, getting above something. And I believe that you have to get above the pain and suffering vibrations that you're experiencing in your life, so that you can succeed. And of course, everything's a voyage. It's a journey, so that I felt that was a very apt name for my business, your voyage of transcendence, you transcending your pain and suffering.
And you're a guide that can help people do that.
I work with vibration. I work with the vibrations in your body that are very strong, your body and your mind that are very strong, like the anger. And let me tell you, I have not come across one person as yet that is not full of anger, maybe not even from this lifetime, but quite often from childhood. And once that is removed, within a few days, they feel so much better. So much better.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It's a fascinating thing. I have been energy healing for over 20 years. And over the last 2 or 3 years, I have been pushed, I suppose. Guided is a good word, but I think I've been really pushed to move away from the modalities of other people and to use my own inner guidance, my own intuition. So that's the way I'm going at the moment. But I do not just the energy healing, but coaching as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So to how to be aware of your thoughts, your words, your actions about a specific thing. And if something goes wrong, what's happening in the moment, to help people become aware of really what their vibration is.
And their patterns.
Of
behavior.
Yeah. It's all a big thing.
Dawn and I both did the Tony Robbins course.
Yes, we did.
Together. We did. So we learned about patterns and we're joking. We're making signals, body language signals that we learned during our course. So fun. Well, we do have a few questions that we like to ask every guest at the end. Ashley, would you like to start?
Yes. So what is your coffee order?
My coffee, I'm a simple gal. It has to be just a black coffee.
Really?
Nothing in it?
If you put anything in coffee, like vanilla or flavourings or cream, that's categorised as a dessert. That's not coffee.
What if it's sugar-free?
It's definitely not a dessert to me. I love black coffee.
Nice.
Yes.
Nice.
With 2
Good
ice cubes.
answer.
That's my coffee order. A large black coffee with 2 ice cubes, please.
Wow.
I like it.
Yeah, it saves me
I like
from
it.
burning myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do that quite a lot. It's very embarrassing.
Well, tell us what gets you out of bed in the morning. Like what drives you? What's your motivation?
At the moment, what's driving me is a couple of projects that are on the go that I can't mention right now.
Okay.
But a couple of projects, my clients, because I love how they tell me every week how much better they're feeling. And a big thing that's driving me right now is, I suppose, investigating out-of-body experiences.
Whoa.
It's been something I've been aware of all my life. And I read a book recently that has triggered something within me to understand that the dreams I have been having are not dreams. They have been out-of-body experiences.
Well, that's fascinating.
Not all of them, but a good chunk of them. And at the moment, I'm in the middle of documenting them, so I'm pulling everything together. I have recently been instigating out-of-body experiences myself, like intentionally.
Oh.
Yes. And they're working, and it's amazing.
Okay.
So that is what's getting
My mind
me
is
a bit-
blown right
it's
now, Dawn.
very, very exciting.
Wow.
Very exciting.
We may have to talk more about that later. What scares you? What are you most afraid of?
I have to say now, I am not scared of anything, because following what I have been finding out and discovering in these out-of-body experiences, there is nothing that can harm me.
Wow.
Not a thing.
Okay.
Not a thing.
I love it. That's amazing. That's a great answer.
I'll maybe put spiders in there.
Okay.
Just
Okay.
for some
That's
fun.
fair.
Prefer not to have a spider in the
The
room.
spiders in Texas are 10 times the size of spiders anywhere else.
It's true. Everything's bigger in Texas.
They are especially the bugs. Especially the bugs.
Especially mosquitoes. Let me tell you.
Oh, I'm chewed alive at the moment.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. Do you have a favorite cocktail?
Do you have a favourite cocktail?
Or several? I mean,
Well, let me just say, I now no longer drink alcohol.
okay.
Because I had a bit of an alcohol problem.
Okay.
I wouldn't say I had an addiction to it, but I was drinking a lot. So I now don't touch it. I haven't done for a couple of years now. However, I'll tell you a quick story
Okay.
that involves a cocktail. When we were moving over to Colorado, which would be about, 5.5 years ago now, we packed up all our stuff and we headed to the airport. We were staying overnight at the airport hotel, and we had the cats with us. So we had 3 cats. I stayed in the hotel room while Duncan and my daughter Jenna went down to the bar. So they were going to have something to eat and a couple of beers. And I just stayed up the stairs with the cat. And they were nagging me to come down for a drink. So I said, okay, I'll come down. Wandered along, got in the elevator, and it went down 2.5 floors, and doof, it stopped. Right, just in mid-floor. So about an hour and 45 minutes later or something like that, they managed to free us. And I walked, there was only me and another girl in this elevator, and we walked out, and there was this waiter, and he had his, his tux, and he had the white cloth over his arm with the silver tray, and he had this cocktail on it. And he said, "Mrs. Livingstone?" I said, "Yes." And he said, "Your mojito." And I was, "Oh, well, thank you very much. Don't mind if I do." So, yeah, and
After being trapped,
we got trapped for about an hour and a
45
half, an hour and 45
Wow.
minutes, yeah. So they were very, very nice about it. Very nice. I mean, I wasn't worried in the slightest, but they cleaned our bar tab that whole night. So you can imagine how many mojitos I had. I love the lime and the bubbles and the mint and the combination. It really was lovely.
Even if you take the rum out of it, it's a lovely drink.
Yes, it's very refreshing.
It is very refreshing.
It goes down too well, though. We had quite the hangover the next morning. And getting on a flight with 3 cats and a hangover
Oh, no.
That
was
does
not good.
Ooh, that sounds challenging. Okay, final question. Dream trip. You've lived in other parts of the world, so where would you go if you had a free ticket and a hotel? Where would you go?
I would want to go somewhere like Fiji.
Yeah.
Or the Seychelles. I always, dream about having this perfectly tranquil, peace and quiet beach vacation with really, clear turquoise waters and big white fluffy clouds and nobody around. I love the sun. I love the water. If I could have a location like that without any sand would be wonderful. I'm not really a sand person.
No, interesting.
But I prefer, if I can get a beach with a big, lounger on it, I am cooking my gas.
In the Mediterranean, in like Capri, Italy,
Yeah.
it's rocky. It's
Right.
not sandy.
Uh-huh.
You should maybe go.
Oh,
It's beautiful.
I had never thought about that.
It is extraordinary. It is one of my favorite trips. My husband and I just went in.
Oh, that's right. You were there.
In September and October when your mom was in town
When
visiting
she was
you.
here, yeah.
Yeah. And I had never seen anything like it. I mean, it was absolutely extraordinary. And I was surprised that there was sand in some areas, but it was also just like black rock. And the color, like you can imagine the photographs, Ashley, the color of the black, like lava rock. I don't know if it was that, but that's what it looked like to me with the blue waters. It was just stunning, just
Gorgeous.
absolutely gorgeous. And then they had, the bright umbrellas. So you've got the contrast of the black and the blue, and then the like orange and white umbrellas everywhere. And it was just lovely. There were lots of people though, so it wasn't tranquil.
Did they do mojitos there?
They do mojitos there.
Well, it's still not Fiji. It's
No.
not Fiji. I think I would have to say Fiji.
Fiji.
Yeah.
Okay. Good answer.
Yeah.
Good answer. Any final questions, Ashley?
I don't think so. Thank you so much.
You are so
sharing.
welcome. It was my pleasure.
Our pleasure.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes. Such a fun conversation.
It was.
The Celebrating Women podcast wants to hear from you. Find us on social media at facebook.com/Celebrating Women Podcast or on Instagram. Search Celebrating Women Podcast. You can also email us a voice message to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. We would love to hear your story or the story of an incredible woman you know. Send it to celebratingwomenpodcast@gmail.com. The Celebrating Women podcast is created and hosted by Mandee Montana and Ashley Fisher. Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to subscribe to the Celebrating Women podcast.